We've got a friend of the show, Mark, Michael J. Loomis. Dr. Michael J. Loomis. Dr. Loomis.
Oh, I don't know about doctor.
No, you are. That's all you are. You're an instructor, man. You're a yogi. You're a rabbi. So anyway, Mark, say hello to Mike. Mike, say hello to Mark.
Okay, we've got a rabbi in, have we?
No, he's being silly.
Oh, right, okay.
Hold on, I'll be right back.
I just mean he's a teacher. He teaches me. Did you not hear very well, Mark?
Oh. In the sense that I like to share knowledge with people, yes, I guess you could call me a rabbi, but
yes,
I'm only...
The spirit.
Hold on just a sec.
I think I'm going to have to slow down and not interrupt. I'm going to have to let you guys finish talking or something.
Did you introduce me? Because I didn't get a name.
Yeah, his name's Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm
Sorry,
good, thank you.
I had to shut my door and turn off a little buzzer that was going. So what's this little message here at the bottom?
I misread that. I thought
it's a banner.
Oh, like an advertisement?
no. V. Thomas was in the chat, and I thought Musk. I thought he'd spelt Mark, and I didn't understand what he was talking about. But it was my mistake, and I do apologise, V. Thomas. Hopefully, he'll come back in. So Michael, do you have an interest in the scriptures as well?
Oh yeah, you know what? I spent a lot of years reading the scriptures. I was born into a Christian household. I spent a lot of years broadcasting. I had a Christian internet-based radio station for a number of years where I did a lot of teaching and hosted a lot of radio programs where other people from all around the world also had their radio programs hosted as well. Now, these days, I find myself being more of what I would refer to as a bottom turtle agnostic.
All right, okay.
I still am Christian in my heritage, and having read the Bible some 6 times, it's kind of hard to walk away from that world and life view. But in the same way that there has to be, in my mind, a foundation for understanding how all these things are the way they are. Whatever that looks like, I don't know, and that's where the agnosticism comes in. And whatever that source is, instead of saying it's turtles all the way down, I would say there has to be a bottom turtle. And so it's more of a reductionism kind of thing.
So are you looking for a foundation, or are you just...
Oh, you mean, am I looking for an answer to hang a name on? No.
No. When the bottom turtle, is it like the foundation?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is I'm perfectly satisfied with the claim of agnosticism, because I don't believe. I think the problem is in somebody saying that they know what that bottom turtle is. Because because our knowledge and our understanding of the world around us is limited to and by our own consciousness and our own sensory our senses, the senses that we do have, and all those senses and things like that are also further affected by everything in our environment. And primarily, I think the biggest factor of our environment that affects how we understand those things is the foods that we put in our mouth that are then ultimately, our body will absorb the nutrients that it can. Our small intestine will absorb what it can, but then everything that continues passing through that is what is called indigestible then gets processed by, some 100 trillion microorganisms that are living within our colon, which then produce all of the chemistry that really, our hormones and all the chemistry that really defines who we are, how we think, our emotions, how we respond, the chemistry for our body. And it's just really weird to think that things like bacteria, yeast, fungi, and even worms that live within us are the things that are creating our chemistry. And so that's what I mean by we have 5 obvious senses, but they are all, but each person's perspective is unique in respect to that individual, and no two people are the same. And so for any group of people to come together and proclaim that they have an answer or the correct answer for what that bottom turtle is, I think is problematic.
Okay, would it be a form of arrogance to say that we've got the truth?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and is that what you meant?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. If you'd spoken to me 20 years ago, I'd have argued the toss on everything. But I found as the older you get, the more grey things become. It's no longer black and white.
The black and the white tend to mix together the older we become. See, I got my black and my white mixing into gray.
Yeah.
But see, now you're lucky. You still got all the stuff on top, where me, I'm thinning on the top, and it's, oh man, I used to have such nice thick hair.
Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, me too.
So do you think, Michael, that our inner spirit is affected by our gut health?
Well, yes. I mean, now I probably wouldn't. Inner spirit. Wow, that's kind of a loaded metaphor. Yes, absolutely, because everything really boils down to chemistry. I mean, everything and that's why you can even have 2 twins that might look identical when they're born, but eventually they're going to, the older they get, the more and more differences you're going to see.
Yeah.
Unless, the only way I think that you could avoid that would be to somehow lock them in a closed environment and only allow them to have 100% identical interactions with their environment externally and internally.
Okay.
Well, either that or inbreeding.
Yeah.
Generationally. But see, this is the stuff I'm talking about right here. This is a book that I'm currently working my way through. It's called Biochemical Individuality. The author is Roger. Well, this is all backwards. Roger J. Williams. And I think this one was originally published in 1956. And what he does is he just has done some amazing work to show how, even things like this, where, these are all, examples of how a stomach can differ from person to person. And ultimately the shape of the stomach and the size of it are going to determine what the end product is that makes its way into our small intestine so that our body can assimilate those nutrients. And see, most people are completely unaware of this because most people just don't have the time or interest to study this stuff. I mean, I look at, things like this here where, most people don't realize that, between two individuals, they can have anywhere from 6 to 12 inches difference in the length of their colon alone, which will affect the volume of microorganisms that are living in there. I mean, imagine imagine me sitting.
Excuse me real quick. I'm sorry. You know what they say about having a long colon, don't you?
They're full of shit.
Probably.
But the reality is, I mean, the difference between two different people that have, a different length in colon is that, you're going to have different levels of chemistry. Like you might have one person that eats a primarily whole food plant-based diet with a limit of animal-based protein to less than 5%, and the volume of stool that they would produce in 1 week might fit in a 32-ounce container versus somebody that eats a high meat diet where they'll produce like a gallon of stool. And the difference is not in the volume of food that they're producing, but because the amount when the stool that humans produce, the stuff that ends up in the toilet, that is roughly 80% dead microorganisms. So only about 20% of what ends up in your toilet is actually food waste.
Okay.
Right.
Right. So, is there any particular foods that you would sort of recommend or avoid, or?
Personally, myself, when it comes to my own diet, I eat what I call a whole food plant-based diet, but I also will eat a duck egg every other day as a dietary supplement to fill in the gaps that you can't get from a vegan diet. Like, I think a vegan diet is definitely a way for people to, if they're having problems with, like, say, cancer or other forms of metabolic diseases, a vegan diet is probably one of the best ways to reverse those health problems. But with most diets, what we call diets, which are a change in the way we eat, they have a limited range of effectiveness, which ranges from about 2 to 2.5 years. In that, as humans, we are omnivores, and what our bodies needs are not something that we can just, willy-nilly change on our own by our own decision. Our dietary needs are based on tens of thousands of years of adaptation and what we would call evolution.
So would you recommend that sauerkraut or kombucha, natural yogurts? That sort of thing?
I wouldn't. My recommendation would be, a whole food plant-based diet where when you look at your plate of food that's in front of you, that you can actually look down and recognize every ingredient on that plate in its original form, the way it came off the tree or out of the ground. Mm-hmm. No processing. If it has any label, if you bought it at a store and it has a label on it, don't eat it. If you want to eat animal, any kind of animal-based protein, that you limit it to about 5 to 10% of your caloric intake. And if you really want to optimize its metabolism into your body, you want to limit it to every other day. You don't want to eat, you really don't want to be eating meat or animal-based protein every other day, unless, I mean, if you do, it's not ultimately gonna kill you, but there's a difference between eating for good health and eating for optimal health.
Yeah.
So with me,
just real quick, for those of everyone who's listening, this is not medical advice.
No.
These are just simply discussion points. We are not recommending that you practice any of these suggestions. If you do have any interest in finding out what you should eat, please consult your own general practitioner. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So, you know, the way I'm looking at it is from the perspective of how it is we would have evolved over, say, let's just assume that mankind has been around in its current form of Homo sapiens sapien for the last 50,000 years. What foods would we have had access to? And the reality is, we, you know, us modern Homo sapiens sapien, we're living in a unique time where we have access to an overabundance of calories. And probably one of the biggest problems, that one of the biggest things that has modified the way that we eat in the last 150 years is refrigeration. In that, before the invention of refrigeration, people didn't eat anywhere near as much animal-based foods as we do today. I even read a statistic somewhere recently that between the decade of 1880 and 1890, with the invention of refrigeration, the amount of animal-based foods, meats, and whatnot actually went up by 2 to 3 times. And you know, what we can also see when we look at the literature and the research is that it's been precisely since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and especially since about the 1900s, that all forms of metabolic disease have just skyrocketed and gone up through the roof, and quite frankly has been the mother that gave birth to our modern day medical system to treat and fix these problems that were created by refrigeration and industrialization.
If you look at any photographs from the 1950s or 60s of where there's photographs of public places, whether it's a beach or on the streets, where there's lots of people,
mm-hmm.
you don't see anybody overweight in the 60s
No.
and 50s. Everybody looks really quite healthy.
Right.
Slim. What's happened since then?
Just more processed foods and more prosperity and more access to, you know, stores that are simply providing these things and calling them food. I mean, these restaurants, you know, when I was a kid, there was a limited number of fast food restaurants that were available, and my parents, you know, we lived in a world back in the 1970s, even into the 80s. We lived in a world where there was still a mother figure at home. There was still a paternal figure at home, while there was one parent working. You know, families had one car for the most part. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I remember that when I was a kid growing up, we were lucky to stop at Taco Bell maybe once a month. And when we did go, I was lucky to get a burrito. And if it was going to McDonald's, it was like once a year on the birthday. Mm-hmm. You know, and now we have one parking lot that will have 6 or 7 fast food restaurants to choose from, and those parking lots will have been converted into a bunch of lines of people sitting in their cars for half an hour to 45 minutes waiting for their food. And so we're still calling it food, which is false. It's not food, it's processed junk, and it's no longer fast, because now people are sitting in line for a half an hour waiting for it. You know, and so I think that's a problem, is that we're calling this stuff food when it's really not. Mm-hmm. You know, food is things like when you have grapes sitting there in front of you, you have a banana, you have an apple, you have potatoes, you have, you know, broccoli, you have beans, you have potato, you know, just all these were the foods that we grew up with. These are the foods that mom cooked. And you know, I even remember, you know, one time back in the late 90s, I had met a girl that was visiting here from Italy, and we went to the grocery store to buy some food. She wanted to make some pasta for dinner, and we walked in and she goes, your guys' doors, what is that noise? Can you hear that?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, Mark, I think it's you. You've got some kind of feedback. It sounds like someone with a lawnmower is going through your room.
Hang on, try again. Is that any better?
A little better, yes, quite a bit. It still sounds like there's a
I can still hear it.
It still sounds like there's like a weed blower or a weed whacker kind of going.
I don't know.
But there's this girl from Italy. Her name was Sabina. We went into the grocery store and she goes, all this stuff in the middle that you guys have here, she goes, we don't have this in Italy. You know, when we go to the market, we have produce. You know, we have this section that you have over here in the store, and that's it. And if we want bread, we go to the baker. And if we want, you know, and so I thought it was weird that she didn't want to buy, you know, tomato sauce made by Prego or Ortega or whatever, you know what I mean? She wanted to actually buy the tomato sauce in a can and then, you know, doll it up herself to add to the pasta.
I spent about 9 or 10 weeks in America working about 10 years ago, and your white bread tastes like sweet cake to me.
Right.
I'm from Ireland, so there was definitely a lot more sugar just in ordinary what was called white bread.
Yeah.
It tastes like cake. Well,
it's not that they put more sugar in it, it's that they remove more of the plant fiber from it. Mm-hmm. And what's left over is simply the sugars.
Yeah.
So see, that's the thing is people have this misunderstanding of what carbohydrates are, and that, you know, everybody has virtually just demonized this idea of carbohydrates when carbohydrates are not the problem. It's processed carbohydrates. It's, in other words, it's the carbohydrates where they've removed the plant fiber, so that what's left over is the simple sugars. You know, the simple sugars, when they're bound up in the fiber itself is the rate limiting mechanism that keeps you from eating too much of it. You know, I think it's kind of funny if you take like say Frito-Lay corn chips. You buy the 9.75 ounce bag of those things, and that bag contains about 1,600 calories of corn chips, and it's all it's all made from corn. Okay, but it's only 9.75 ounces. Now, if you wanted to eat 1,600 calories of broccoli, guess how many pounds of broccoli you would need to eat? 10 pounds.
Wow.
Nobody would be eating 10 pounds of broccoli. It would kill them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole point, is that, you know, the more and the more of the fiber that we remove, all of a sudden it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And the calories don't change that much because there's no calories in fiber. But if you remove all the fiber, what you're going to get is all the calories in a condensed form.
Yeah.
That then is going to make your blood sugar go, pew, your glucose is going to spike and then going to come back down. And, you know.
Travis, I've seen you making sauerkraut recently on
but that's
on Facebook.
Mike.
Yes.
I was pickling vegetables. Yeah. Not
right.
sauerkraut, but pickles.
Right. Okay. All right.
So here's the thing.
But what I said.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, just real quick. I didn't know if what I said got heard. What was I going to say? Oh, I said tongue in cheek, Mike. That's why we have supplements. I just now have to go and take a pill to get my fiber. There you go.
No, yeah. You know what? We need to eat the food the way Mother Nature creates it. And see, the reason why I even suggested from the beginning that we limit our animal-based foods to only 5 to 10% of our diet is because, technically speaking, when we eat animal-based foods, we're eating processed carbohydrates.
I just need to make a bathroom break, gentlemen. I'll be back.
Okay.
All right, old man.
Hey, Travis.
Yeah.
Did you understand what I just said there when I suggested that we limit our animal-based food intake to 5%, 5 or 10% of our diet? The reason why is because when we're eating a steak, or we're eating chicken, or we're eating fish, or we're eating eggs, technically speaking, we are eating processed carbohydrates, because every single one of those animals, with the exception of, I mean, you know, ducks and chickens, if you leave them out to in their natural environment, yes, they will eat things like insects and whatnot. But the reality of it is every other animal is vegan.
Well, I mean, is that truly true? Because
Absolutely.
Hold on. If an animal dies,
Mm-hmm.
and then a bear walks by and poops on the carcass, and then next spring there's a blueberry bush, that blueberry was carnivorous on that decaying body.
No, the blueberry, the seed that the bear swallowed that made its way through the digestive tract of the bear is utilizing the decayed, decomposed flesh as a substrate by which to grow from.
So you're saying that it's not consuming; it's just utilizing as like a
fertilizer,
a warm fuzzy blanket.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, I could go with that. I appreciate that response.
Yeah, but see, it's you know, ultimately speaking, and I really, I'm doing some work on this. I'm doing some writing to try and help people better understand that, like I said, even when you're eating meat, technically speaking, you're still you're eating highly processed produce. And that's why you want to limit those things to 5 or 10% of your caloric intake, because what you're doing when you eat a piece of meat, what you're doing is you're eating produce that has had all of the fiber removed from it. Okay, so when you're eating,
doggone it, I wanted to jump in and give that punchline because I thought that's where you were going to go, and I wanted to be a good boy. You just said it.
Okay. And so, you know, in the same way that we don't want to be eating refined sugars, in the same way we don't want to be drinking, you know, the juice of an orange, we want to eat the sugar the way that Mother Nature created it, with all of its fiber bound up. That's the same thing. I mean, animals, that's all they're doing is they're consuming the whole plant, fiber and all, and then their body is gathering together the condensed version of those processed nutrients. And that's why, you know, you can eat an egg, or you can eat a piece of, you know, a 4-ounce piece of meat, and you're getting a complete set of nutrients. There's nothing lacking in animal foods. But the problem is that they are so incredibly dense with nutrients. Our bodies as humans are not designed to consume the level that most people are eating. I mean, a lot of people, especially here in the United States, they'll have eggs, bacon, and cheese, you know, eggs with cheese on it in the morning with bacon, along with, you know, hash browns. And in that plate, there's no real fiber. Then they might have what they think is a healthy chicken sandwich for lunch, or a ham sandwich, and then they'll, you know, with some crisps, and then, you know, maybe when they get home, their wife will have cooked them up a steak, right? So what are you doing? But when you eat that much animal-based protein in one day, you're literally eating enough nutrients that could have fed somebody for a whole week, but in one day. And that's why people end up with all manner of metabolic diseases, whether it's obesity, diabetes, kidney disease, liver, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, you know, cardiovascular disease, all these different things, because their body is not able to utilize all of those things. And so it ends up storing those things in your body and in what we call fat. And then we become overweight. And literally for every pound of fat that we have that's above and beyond what our body needs, our body has to create tons more vasculature and more veins and more arteries and more lymphatic channels by which to maintain those things. And so that's why people that are not eating in an optimal fashion have a shorter life, that has a shorter health span.
That's really, really interesting to think about that in terms of